basis, it's definitely the channel for you. We appreciate y'all joining us this evening. So make sure you subscribe. And, let's have some fun. Let's jump into it. First topic of the night here, 2025 Packers Super Bowl contenders or bust. The last couple of years, we've talked about this being the youngest team in the league, right? And some people use it as an excuse. Other people, say they don't have a snowball's chance in hell of winning the championship. I tend to lean a little more towards, hey, look, when you're the youngest team in the league, it's far more difficult to win the Super Bowl. Well, now here we are stepping into this year with a couple of key free agent signings, in my opinion. Well, actually, there was 4 different ones that made the roster a little bit older. And I feel like this is going to be as much a veteran roster as we've had in a while, with the addition of Aaron Banks. We're going to talk about all that. Nate Hobbs, another veteran. I love what Goody did, how he went out there and found a couple of guys that are veterans, but not over the hill, right? I think that's very, very important. But let's dive into the article here. Is Jordan Love a top 5 quarterback? Are the Packers the best young team? Wrong questions. The real one, after an aggressive offseason, is it Super Bowl or bust for Green Bay? The window is wide open. Let's break down why the Packers are legit contenders. Jacob, I know some people see this after an aggressive offseason. They go, what are you talking about? We weren't aggressive. Guys, average annual value, we spent more than anyone in free agency last I checked. Now, when you look into the guaranteed money and how we can get out of those contracts after 2 years, that's Goody being Goody, right? Covering the bases. I think people seen this offseason, Jacob, and they immediately thought, well, we didn't do anything. It's just because they disagreed with the signings that Goody made. The fact is, we went out and got 2 guys, whether we think they're going to be great or not, they are going to be starters on this team. And some people believe Mecole Hardman will be a starter with Christian Watson being out. Others believe Isaiah Simmons could take that third stackbacker spot, possibly the second one, depending on what happens with Quay Walker's contract as well. But I don't know if that makes sense or not, man, but this was an aggressive offseason, man. This was Goody going out and spending top dollar for 2 free agents.
Yeah, I agree with that. And like you said, I believe it's just certain fans that they didn't get their way, right? They didn't get a T. Higgins or like some splash type player where they really just thought, which again, Ryan had a great podcast. I don't remember if it was today or yesterday where he highlights just how AI and some of these specifically Facebook groups have gotten a little out of freaking control where they just like, dude, I mean, I'm talking about, and the worst part is that everybody's falling for it and they're getting into arguments in the comments over it. And, that's one of the misconceptions I think of the fans is that like, yeah, maybe we didn't go out and get like a quote unquote splash player, but I have a lot of hope for Nate Hobbs. I hope that Aaron Banks is the type of player that they paid him like he could be. And like you said, they structured these contracts in the type of way where it's not going to be, it's not a Deshaun Watson contract, right? Where they're going to be paying for the rest of eternity. And it was just immediately a complete kerfuffle. And like you said, I like some of the lower key older guys that they brought. I think Mecole Hardman could be one of the sneakiest free agent signings of the year. I mean, honestly, it's not too far to say that because that dude has just been doing nothing but being a consummate professional, bringing in kind of that veteran presence. And like you said, it is crazy too. I was just listening to an interview with Devontae Wyatt, and he was talking about how Kenny Clark is about to enter his 10th season, and he's still, I don't think he's turned 30 yet, which is insane.
That's crazy.
And we've got guys like Brooks and Wooden, and how all of a sudden that defensive line room all of a sudden is one of the more kind of seasoned vets groups. Obviously, we got new guys like Nazir and Brinson in there, but I do think that this year that, we've talked about how there's a window, there's a gap, a timeline of when the Packers can succeed. And I really think that this is one of those seasons where the window's cracked open as wide as it can be.
Yeah, let's go to the chat here. John Johnson says, we're going to be just fine on both sides of the ball. I completely agree. Deadfish says, Goody traded Ja's contract for Hobbs. That's really an accurate way of looking at it, right? You're freeing up some cap space. Now, we chose to absorb the entire cap penalty this year to just go ahead and kind of get everything wiped off the books for next year. But essentially, you're swapping Hobbs for Ja and freeing up some money. And when I say freeing up some money, it almost comes out as a push when you take into account Nate Hobbs' money there, right? Now, again, nobody's saying Jair isn't a great football player when he's on the field. The problem is he's not on the field that often. And sooner or later, you've got to make that decision. I was very vocal. I would much rather have had Jair Alexander on this team for $6 million. And it's pretty much being confirmed now that the Packers did not match or were not willing to go as high as Baltimore did with the $6 million. So they were probably somewhere around 4 to 5 million that's what Wildy and Tausch said the other day. Is it was definitely I think they said 4 million, but nonetheless, you can understand too, it's more about that progress stopper. Like, hey, we want to make sure that we got guys that are going to be on the field, they're going to be healthy, and it's not going to be something that the day of, the week of, it's going to be a scratch because he couldn't go out there and be on the field. H.E. Solder says, moving on from Stokes and Myers were the biggest 2+ moves. Amen. Think about this. Jair being banged up the way he was, you never knew when he was going to be available, right? He played like less than 50% of the snaps over the last 3 years, if I understood correctly. So you're swapping Stokes and Hobbs. That's an upgrade. You're swapping Myers and Aaron Banks. That's an upgrade, right? Because you're going to kick Elton to center, and Aaron Banks is kind of taking that roster spot that Myers had. I love the way you worded that, Soder. I think I completely agree with that.
Yeah,
totally
that's a good
agree
point.
with that. Coach Lynn says, I hope Harmon gets a chance to prove that with all the wide receivers we have. Hey, I'll tell you, Harmon is one. We talked about it last night. He's growing on me. He's growing on me big time. He's showing some veteran leadership. Now, listen, he may not make it out of camp. I think we all understand that.
Yeah.
But there's some value there with the versatility, no doubt. John Johnson says we got a great locker room. That's key. That's key along with talent. Completely agree with that take. So if you'll notice here, guys, points per play last year, even with your quarterback battling 3 injuries, even with your number 1 receiver being hobbled pretty much most of the year there, and Christian Watson kind of off and on. Jaden Reed had an ankle injury and a shoulder injury. These guys were banged up. You lost Luke Musgrave pretty much for the season. You lost your your second or your third round pick in Marshawn Lloyd right out of the gate. You're missing all these pieces on offense, right? And you still finished 8th in the league in points per play at 0.432 points per play. So moving on here, no more moral victories. The Packers were the NFL's youngest team, celebrated for growth. That story's changed. All right, it says GM Brian Gutekunst bold move scream win now. This isn't about playoffs. It's about the Lombardi Trophy. Here are 4 reasons why 2025 is championship or bust. Number 1, pillar 1, I should say, offensive juggernaut. Jordan Love is the guy. After elite flashes in 2023 with a gritty 2024, he's poised for a top-tier season. His arsenal, electric first-rounder Matthew Golden, a polished deep threat, forces defenses back. Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, and Romeo Doubs form a nightmare receiving core. Third-rounder Savion Williams adds physicality. Tight ends Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft create mismatches, with Kraft's play surpassing Musgrave on the depth chart. Josh Jacobs anchors the ground game, with rookie Marshawn Lloyd's explosiveness keeping defenses guessing. This offense can dominate in countless ways. Just wanted to point out here, yards per play. We talked about points per play. In yards per play, kind of moving the ball down the field, Green Bay actually finished even better than points per play. They finished 5th in the league, Jacob, at 6.1. Only 1/10 of a point per play behind Tampa Bay and San Francisco, 0.2 of a point per play behind Detroit, who everybody talked about was just unbelievable offense, right? 2/10 of a point per play behind them. Of course, Baltimore, pretty good lead there at 6.8.
Yeah, and that really gives you, if you're an optimistic Packer fan, hopefully like myself, I would consider, you look at the way that Green Bay played that 6.1 in 2024, that's a pretty decent improvement over the whole of 2023, which is at 5.7. Then you look at the fact that they were a better away team than a home team. All of this, again, with the injuries and all the stuff that you just talked about with Jordan Love. And people are trying to throw shade on like, oh, he's not as good as the 23 and 3s. I mean, I think that when all things are considered, another good thing that I saw in that interview with Wyatt was I can't remember who it was that asked him, and they said, hey, we've seen how if every single one of you younger guys, and I think he listed off basically every wide receiver, the 2 tight ends, and the guys on this defensive line, guys like Wooden, Kobe, those types of things. If you all are able to play at a level that you are capable of, that we've seen you actually play at, what's the sky for this team? And he's like, the sky's the limit. Like, this is actually a Super Bowl caliber team. And I think that that's something here. What do we always talk about? A Super Bowl caliber team. What's the last piece that you add? Stud wide receiver.
Typically it's wide receiver. Yeah. That's Bill Walsh.
What we do?
101. Yeah.
What do we do? We got Golden and we got Savion. So it's like something
and
feels like exactly. And something to me just feels like the front office knows what they have. It's like a guy that's sitting on pocket aces. He's just sitting there grinning all cocky. I feel like that's like Goody and now oh gosh, what's the new guy? Ed Policy. They're just kind of looking at each other like, yeah, let's go.
I'm telling you, man, the window's open. Now they got to go out there and do it. They got to protect the football. We got to win the turnover differential, all those things that we always talk about on game day. But I think the pieces are there. Would I bet the farm that they're going to win the Super Bowl this year? Probably not, but I can see them going deep in the playoffs if everyone stays healthy. That's what's going to be crucial for sure. Another thing to point out here, Jacob, with the passing game, yards per pass attempt, we finished with Love being banged up all year long, and his receivers leading the league in drops, right? We finished 4th in the league at 8.1 yards per pass attempt, literally a top 5 passing offense. So just want to throw that out.
Like you said, it wasn't just the fact that they led the league in drops. It was the worst drop percentage, I believe, for a wide receiver group of the Green Bay Packers in like 20 or 30 years. Like it was really bad. So the fact that we're able to still, like you said, put up a mark of being 4th overall, again, it's just another metric to me, even though it's a negative one, it's showing how good we can be if we have a positive regression in this year.
Yeah. Pillar number 2, strategic reload. Goody targeted needs with impact starters. Guard Aaron Banks, a mauler from the 49ers, bolsters the offensive line, freeing Elton Jenkins to play center. Cornerback Nate Hobbs, a physical, versatile addition, joins Keyshawn Nixon, Carrington Valentine, and Xavier McKinney, upgrading the secondary. These moves signal win now, plugging holes with veterans. We didn't even mention Evan Williams, who's one of the up-and-coming, young stars in this league. I mean, he got finished with, a 72 PFF grade his rookie year last year. It's something else to think about. As Ed Madden says here in the chat, don't forget the penalties, Jacob, right? I mean, that was a huge, huge problem last year as well. Deadfish also said it helps to lead the league in most 20-plus air yard passes. Amen to that. And he had the most completed, too. The ball in the air for 20 yards or more, Jordan Love completed more passes of 20-plus air yards than any quarterback in the league with 24 is what he finished with. So moving along here, pillar number 3, trench dominance. Championships start up front. The Packers O-line, Rasheed Walker, Elton Jenkins, Aaron Banks, Jordan Morgan, Zach Tom are looking to keep Love clean. And while opening lanes for Jacobs, depth like Sean Ryan and second-round pick Anthony Belton protects against injuries. This line's versatility is a fortress built for January. I would love to see those 5 start on the offensive line, Jacob. And then I'd love the thought of Sean Ryan being your swing guard. Somebody gets banged up, a former starter plugs right in and plays. And then, of course, if a tackle gets banged up, you just spent a second-round pick on Anthony Belton to come in there and play that swing tackle position. These are the problems we ran into with Philly. Elton Jenkins gets banged up. He exits the game, and the offensive line fell apart because there just wasn't enough depth there. Now you've got solid depth at the offensive line. I believe that, man. I really do.
Yeah, I agree. And it was easy to see again. Like it doesn't feel like last year was as injury riddled as it really was. I think because a lot of the guys kept their mouths shut, which is, again, something that is admirable. Like, for instance, again, I hate going back to the same in that interview with Devontae Wyatt, he talks about how Kenny Clark admitted that he was playing throughout injury the whole year. And you guys know I've been very critical of a guy like Kenny Clark, but it just shows that the fact that if these guys can stay a little bit healthy, and specifically on this O-line, I mean, I love Rasheed Walker. I wish we could throw him the bag. Obviously, it's just probably not in the cards for him being a 7th rounder, for him stepping in and doing as well as he's done. I don't think you could ask more of a 7th rounder. Elton's obviously Elton. I'm a little worried, obviously, about the contract situation and if he has any sort of type of feeling about moving to center. But like you said, dude, that group right there, you got a solid starting 5. And I think you have a solid backup of 8 rotationals. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, I'm more excited to see Anthony Belton, I think, more than anyone.
Me
just
too.
because he's just kind of, he seems like such a, I hate saying mauler because that feels like he's only a one-trick pony type guy, but he does a lot, man. He does.
He's a hoss, dude. He is so big, so big. Ed Madden in the chat says, we know we can play better. We've seen our team play better in 23. Completely agree with that. That's, the end of 23 there, right? The Cowboys game is where we peaked. Right. That just felt like, wow, that's what this team can be, on their best day. Now, the problem is your best day doesn't come often, Jacob. So you got to get scrappy. You got to protect the football. You got to be able to win those ugly games. Typically, that's who comes out the other side there in the playoffs with the Lombardi in hand. I want to point this out. Yards per rush attempt last year, we finished tied for 7th at 4.7. We were 1/10 of a yard per rush attempt away from being in the top 5 in yards per carry, essentially, is what it came down to. So Josh Jacobs, unbelievable performance. Emmanuel Wilson, one of the most underrated number 2 running backs in the league. And the reality is Marshawn Lloyd is probably going to be better than Emmanuel Wilson. That's wild to think about.
Well, I also think you can't turn away from the fact that Chris Brooks was somebody that clearly just came out of nowhere. And Matt LaFleur was like, all right, we'll throw him into like game critical situations. I remember certain other Packers podcasters or analysts, whatever you want to call them, like poo-pooing, like, why is Chris Brooks out? Because he trusts him. Because Chris, like, that's crazy to me that we had, like you said, even with Marshawn Lloyd, a guy that I am very excited to see. If you guys want to have a fun time, it's the off season, and you got really nothing to do, go watch some of his highlights from USC. The guy is different, dude. He is different. He can throw it into that final gear in a way where it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Chuck Jaggers in the chat says, James Jones said it best, quote, we never won a second Super Bowl because we all decided to have our worst game the same game. And talking about that Seattle game, I'm sure it's the first thing that came to mind for me, right? I mean, that is such a accurate statement there, Chuck, for sure, man. That's a great pull. There. All right, so yards per rush attempt we carried. Let's go to pillar 4, efficient defense. The Packers defense, once mediocre, has transformed.
Can I ask a quick question, Clayton?
Yeah, man.
Sorry.
Yeah.
What was the deal with the names being all messed up?
Dude, I have no idea, man. I'm telling you, there's wacky stuff that goes on.
I didn't
on YouTube, right? Yeah, it's
yeah, now they're all back to normal.
Right. Yeah. I can't figure YouTube out, dude. I don't understand it, man. It's so it's just such a strange place. Like the stuff that we get dinged for sometimes is wild. It's just like, I don't understand why that's an issue, but that's a topic for another day. I don't know what was up with the names. And those listening on the pod are going, what are y'all talking about? Everybody's names in the chat just all of a sudden had an at in front of them and they changed them up. I was like, I thought everybody was messing with me. I was making jokes about it. Like everybody's just changing their name to confuse me. That's not hard to do, obviously. So, pillar number 4, efficient defense. The Packers defense, once mediocre, has transformed under Jeff Hafley. His 4-3 front, led by Rashawn Gary and Lucas Van Ness, finished second in run defense while settling in the 8th spot against the pass. Devontae White is ready to dominate inside. In the secondary, Xavier McKinney roams deep. Nate Hobbs adds physicality, and Carrington Valentine's consistency shines. This unit is confident, aggressive, and ready to dominate, even with the departure of the often injured Jair Alexander. Now, the bust part here, the bust factor, I should say, Jacob, the schedule's brutal. With tough AFC North, NFC East, and NFC North matchups, youth brings energy but also pressure. Can they handle the target? Health is critical. Injuries to Love, Jacobs, or Gary could derail everything. Conclusion, the Packers have a superstar quarterback, explosive offense, dominant offensive line, and aggressive defense. The moves are made. The scheme is set. It's Super Bowl or bust in 2025. When you look at the schedule here, man, let's just run down it real quick. Week 1, Lions at home. Week 2, the Commanders at home. That's 4 days apart. 4 days later, we play the Commanders. Then week 3 on the road with the Browns. I think that's a very winnable game. Week 4, Sunday Night Football on the road against the Cowboys. They're going to be looking to bounce back, but I feel pretty good about the way the Packers perform in Dallas. Week 5, you got your bye. Everybody hates that, right? Week 6, you got the Bengals at home. Week 7 and 8, you go on the road against the Cardinals and then the Steelers. Week 9, you're back home against the Panthers. Week 10, you're back home against the Eagles on Monday Night Football. That's going to be a hell of a game. I cannot wait for that. Week 11, at the Giants. Week 12, the Vikings at home. 13, you're back at the Lions. Week 14, you got the Bears at home. 15, you go out west and play the Broncos in the Rockies. And then week 16, you got the Bears right back. It's weird that just literally 1 week apart, you play the Bears twice. Pretty wild there. And then week 17 versus the Ravens at home. And then you wrap up the season on the road in Minnesota there. So Ed Madden points out Washington has to travel on a short week. That's good news, right? So there you go. What do you think about that schedule there, Jacob? It is going to be kind of a tough road to hoe there with the AFC North, man. You having to play, obviously, the Ravens down toward the end of the year. So I'm just glad that one's at Lambeau. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. This would not be my ideal schedule by any means. If you had to just like, this wouldn't even be in probably my top. It'd be in my bottom 10% if I could pick a schedule, to be honest. I mean, everything about it is just a little bit suspect. Even if like, all right, you consider the actual quote unquote primetime games. I think that there are other games that are at like the 3 o'clock and the 12 o'clock slot that basically can be considered primetime because of the matchup. You start looking at some of these, obviously we don't have to start talking about how much the Steeler game is going to mean, right?
I'm so excited about that.
How much I know I am and I'm not. It's the weirdest thing in the world. It's like going to the divorce. Am I going home with mom or dad?
Which one would Aaron be? Would he be mom or dad, you think?
Oh gosh, he'd probably
put it on the ticker. Put it in the chat. Let's get a poll question.
Nope. And then honestly, even I'm looking at teams like the Cardinals, the Giants, the Broncos, teams that people that are basing even the Panthers, dude. Everything, like we talk about how certain players turn it on the back end of the game. Bryce Young looked really good in the back half of the season, specifically the final like 4 to 6 games. So I don't think that it's smart or wise to look at a current schedule and base it off of last year's success. I think that's absolutely kind of insane. So a lot of people that go through here, and don't get me wrong, we all went through this together as an exercise and tried to figure out what our win-loss record would be. And I really do feel like we may have been a little biased. So I'm looking at this schedule and I'm thinking now more of like honing it down to being like I hate saying it, like a 10 to 11 win team, but still getting in the playoffs, still doing well. Just, to just say we're getting 14, like that's so much more tough than it happens.
Yeah, and I want to say last year, if I remember correctly, I said 9 to 12 wins. This year I said 10 to 13, somewhere in that range is what I'm seeing. I see 10 as the floor unless injuries just riddle this team and the wheels not only come off, but they pass us up on the road there. So
what do you think about this comment from Bates real quick? Where he says the NFL needs to put bye weeks mid-schedule for all teams. They can do that. There's a way that they could do that easily.
Just 1 week apart, right?
Yeah. Just the fact that they're all like scattered from week 5 up until like, what is it, week 11 or something like that to me is such a crazy advantage, but maybe I'm just crazy.
No, I completely understand, man. They do a lot of things, but Bates, I think they do it this way just to get us talking about it. What are we doing right now? We're talking about it.
That's
as what was it? Jerry Jones said, all publicity is good publicity, right? Even when things go wrong, they're talking about your team. And he said it just like that.